What if I told you that history is not just a collection of dates and facts, but a living tapestry woven with both triumph and tragedy? Imagine for a moment that in just 4 short years, barely a heartbeat in the grand scheme of time, a single, devastating event swept across the continent, wiping out half of Europe's population and leaving entire communities in silence. History isn't just a story of progress and innovation, it's also a record of moments when humanity was brought to its knees by forces beyond its control, moments of profound darkness that echo through the ages. These are the events that tested the very limits of human endurance, resilience, and hope. Events that forced people to confront unimaginable loss, yet also inspired acts of courage and solidarity that shape the world we live in today. Today, we'll journey through 10 of the most harrowing chapters in human history. Our purpose isn't to sensationalize suffering but to understand the deep and lasting impact these tragedies have had on societies, cultures, and generations. These stories are difficult to hear, and even harder to imagine living through, but they are essential to understanding who we are and how far we've come. Join me as we count down these pivotal moments, reflect on the lessons they offer, and uncover the enduring legacies that continue to shape our collective human experience. In the mid-1300s, an invisible killer arrived in Europe, an event that would forever alter the course of history. The Black Death, as it came to be known, swept in silently aboard merchant ships, docking at bustling harbors, carried unknowingly by travelers and cargo alike. No one could have predicted the devastation that was about to unfold. The culprit was Yersinia pestis, a deadly bacterium transmitted by fleas that infested the rats thriving in Europe's crowded towns and cities. As the disease spread from port to port, it unleashed a pandemic of unimaginable scale, killing up to 60% of Europe's population within just a few years. Entire families vanished, and the very fabric of society began to unravel. Swollen, painful buboes appeared on victims, followed by high fever and a swift, agonizing death. The symptoms were terrifying and mysterious, fueling rumors and superstition. Panic and fear swept through every village and city, tearing communities apart as neighbors turned on each other in desperation. Doctors, clad in eerie beaked masks, and priests offering last rites could do little to stop the relentless tide of death. Families, gripped by terror, often abandoned their loved ones. In the countryside, mass graves were dug hastily, filling with the bodies of the lost, as the death toll soared. The aftermath was nothing short of apocalyptic. Once thriving villages stood eerily silent, their streets deserted and fields left untended. Houses crumbled, overtaken by weeds as nature reclaimed the land. Yet from this devastation, a new world began to emerge. With so many lives lost, labor became scarce and the survivors found themselves in high demand. Wages rose and peasants gained new bargaining power, sowing the seeds for the eventual decline of feudalism and the birth of a more modern society. The Black Death was a stark reminder of humanity's vulnerability to unseen forces. Yet, in its wake, it reshaped Western civilization, leaving a legacy that would echo through the centuries and forever change the course of European history. In the early 20th century, the Ottoman Empire launched a systematic campaign to erase the Armenian people. Intellectuals were executed, and entire communities were forced on death marches into the Syrian desert. Starvation, disease, and violence claimed up to 1.5 million lives. Property and culture were destroyed. Despite overwhelming evidence, the Armenian genocide remains a painful, often denied chapter, a warning of the world's silence in the face of atrocity. It stands as a testament to the consequences of unchecked hatred. On September 11, 2001, a clear morning turned to horror as hijacked planes struck the World Trade Center and Pentagon. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost in a coordinated act of terror broadcast live to the world. The collapse of the Twin Towers marked a turning point, ushering in an era of fear, war, and global change. The aftermath brought grief and solidarity, but also decades of conflict and heightened security. 9/11's legacy continues to shape our world today. In 1975, the Khmer Rouge seized Cambodia, promising utopia but delivering genocide. Cities were emptied, millions forced into the countryside for slave labor. Intellectuals, monks, and anyone deemed corrupt were executed or worked to death. Starvation, disease, and paranoia ruled. Even minor infractions meant death. Torture and mass executions filled the killing fields. By 1979, nearly 2 million Cambodians, 1/4 of the population, were dead. Cambodia was left traumatized, a nation scarred by its own hands. From 1959 to 1961, China's Great Leap Forward triggered the deadliest famine in human history, a tragedy that would leave a permanent scar on the nation's memory. In a sweeping attempt to rapidly transform China from an agrarian society into an industrial superpower, the government launched radical policies that upended rural life and devastated millions of families. Under Mao Zedong's leadership, farmers were ordered to abandon their fields and instead work around the clock at backyard furnaces, melting down pots and pans in a futile quest for steel. At the same time, disastrous agricultural methods, like close planting and deep plowing, were imposed, ignoring local knowledge and natural conditions. The infamous Four Pests campaign targeted sparrows, disrupting the ecosystem and unleashing swarms of crop-devouring insects. As fields withered, local officials, desperate to meet impossible quotas, exaggerated harvest numbers. The government seized grain for cities and export, leaving rural communities with nothing. Information about the unfolding disaster was ruthlessly suppressed. In the countryside, people resorted to eating tree bark, wild grass, and even mud just to stay alive. Communal dining halls, once symbols of progress, stood empty as hunger spread. As desperation deepened, reports of cannibalism emerged, and the very fabric of society began to unravel. Families were torn apart, villages emptied, and the social order collapsed under the weight of starvation and fear. Between 15 and 55 million people perished, victims not of natural disaster but of ideology enforced over reality. The scale of suffering was almost unimaginable, with entire communities wiped out and generations marked by loss. The Great Leap Forward remains a chilling warning of what can happen when policy ignores human needs, a man-made catastrophe that echoes through history as a lesson never to be forgotten. In 1994, Rwanda descended into genocide. 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus slaughtered in just 100 days. The assassination of the president sparked a wave of hate, fueled by radio propaganda. Neighbors killed neighbors. Machetes, not guns, were the primary weapon. Churches became sites of massacre. Ordinary people became executioners. The world watched but failed to intervene. Only a rebel army's advance ended the killing. Rwanda's genocide is a haunting lesson in the speed of hate and the cost of indifference. For over 4 centuries, the transatlantic slave trade tore more than 12 million Africans from their homes. The Middle Passage was a nightmare. Disease, death, and despair claimed nearly 2 million lives before reaching the Americas. Survivors faced auction blocks, forced labor, and the destruction of families and cultures. Slavery was justified by racist ideology. Its legacy still felt in systemic injustice today. This chapter is a stark reminder of the cruelty born of greed and dehumanization. Its impact endures in the modern world. On August 6, 1945, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima changed history in an instant. A blinding flash vaporized the city's heart. 80,000 died instantly, tens of thousands more from burns and radiation. 3 days later, Nagasaki suffered the same fate. The bombings ended World War II but ushered in the nuclear age and the threat of annihilation. For the first time, humanity held the power to destroy itself. Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain chilling warnings of technological destruction. Their shadows haunt us still. The Holocaust stands as the ultimate abyss. 6 million Jews and millions of others systematically murdered by the Nazis. Genocide was executed with industrial efficiency, ghettos, camps, gas chambers. Victims were dehumanized, reduced to numbers, and subjected to unimaginable cruelty. Liberation revealed horrors that defy comprehension. The Holocaust is a singular warning of hatred, bureaucracy, and indifference. Remembering it is a moral imperative for all humanity. In 1986, a safety test at Chernobyl's nuclear plant triggered the worst nuclear disaster in history. A massive explosion released radioactive material, poisoning the land and sky. Firefighters died battling the invisible enemy. The nearby city was evacuated too late. The Soviet cover-up delayed the world's response. The exclusion zone remains a radioactive wasteland, its effects still unfolding. Chernobyl is a stark lesson in the cost of human error and secrecy. These 10 tragedies reveal our vulnerability, cruelty, and the consequences of our actions. They are not just history, they shape our present and future. By confronting these dark chapters, we honor the victims and learn to prevent future horrors. What lessons do you take from these events? Share your thoughts and don't forget to subscribe for more history.